You're listening to Choose FI Radio. The blueprint for financial independence lives here. If you're looking to unlock the secrets to financial independence and early retirement, you're in the right place. Stay tuned and join a community of like-minded people who are getting off the hamster wheel and taking control of their lives in the pursuit of financial independence. Choose FI, your home for financial independence online.
All right, everyone, super excited about today's episode. We're getting the opportunity to speak with Jaime Masters. Now, Jaime has been, featured on Yahoo's homepage 6 times, Incorporated, entrepreneur, Business Insider. But really, she has been in this space helping people since 2010, 2011. She started a little-known podcast called Eventual Millionaire. I say that, quotation marks around that. She has interviewed hundreds of self-made millionaires and really drawing out from them their best practices, what it is that they did, what differentiated them from maybe the individuals that were running a parallel path but did not see those results. She took that skill set and has applied it to hundreds and hundreds of business owners, helping them grow their businesses. Incredibly excited about the opportunity to find out more about her story and draw out what we can, those actionable concepts for our audience. To help me with this, I have my co-host Brad here with me today. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, Jonathan, I'm doing quite well. Yeah, I've been looking forward to this for quite some time. Most especially because I've known Jaime off and on, really known, I would say, through email for 5 years. I dug up this old email that I have that said, "Hey, Jaime, my friend Jay from Budgets Are Sexy mentioned you posted on Facebook that you were looking to learn about travel rewards after recently spending a lot of money on a trip. I would absolutely love to help you out if you want some one-on-one guidance."
Have you been Jaime's personal travel rewards coach for the last half decade?
I think I have been, right? There's certainly a couple trips in there, I think. So yeah, it's been amazing. I know she went to Disney World and I suspect a whole bunch of other places. So yeah, just a really funny small world story, and got to meet her last year at FinCon. And now we're having her on the podcast. So Jaime, with that, welcome to Choose FI.
Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
I wanted to start with your story. And in particular, I was listening to an interview that you did relatively recently with Paula Pant from Afford Anything. And in that episode, there was something you said that had resonated with me then and has stayed with me since. It was this phrase, and it was when you were starting back in 2010, you were deciding to write about your story, which at the time was you paying off about $70K in consumer debt. The reason that you felt compelled to write is that you couldn't find anybody else that was on this path that you were on. And what is that path? You framed it as, who's the female breadwinner that's making the choice to pay off all the debt? And the motivation to get out of debt is that they want to stay home with their future kids. And not that they aren't out there. Clearly they're out there, but you couldn't find anybody that was writing about it.
My son was born in 2006. There was less blogs than anything back then. So me trying to even find somebody that had a similar, even close to story back then was ridiculous. Anyway, go ahead.
No, that's where I want to frame us back. It's 2006. You're on this path. You're doing something that in your mind is remarkable. I believe it's remarkable. But just for our audience, what was this path that you felt like you were trailblazing and that you couldn't find any role models to follow? So you had to figure it out for yourself.
Well, the internet was not nearly as cool as it is now, right? That's one thing. But being able to really find somebody that had a trajectory. I was making 6 figures at 22, and my former husband at the time, we're still really good friends. He was a professional juggler and had a different type of salary that was more in the winter, we made 0. And in the summer, we made some. And trying to figure out and navigate what that was difficult to say the least. And so imagine taking off the health insurance and the $100,000 and being like, oh, now you have no money. So I got really, really good. That's why I had to pay off the $70,000 in debt. We had a $250,000 mortgage of a house also, which I was willing to give up if needed for sure. But there was zero stories online that I could find anywhere having to do with that. So I started blogging randomly just to try and sort of get it out there. And I love the financial blogging space. I wasn't a podcaster then, but the financial blogging space was really, really helpful for me. But again, I was like, hey, guys, is there any story even close to mine? And there really wasn't. So that's why I was like, hey, I might as well tell some people about it.
Yeah, that's amazing. We've certainly found throughout our 300 plus episodes that stories make the world go round. It's amazing how people can connect, even if they've never met you, they've never met our guest or whoever, but they connect to that story because they see a little piece of themselves in it. It's remarkable what a difference that makes to people. So yeah, it's cool that you hit on that as well. And so you were making 3+ times what your husband was making at that point. How does that work with the interpersonal dynamics, I guess, between a husband and wife?
Oh, that's a whole separate conversation.
Yeah.
I talk about this a lot, especially because I work with a lot of female breadwinners in business also. So to bring it back around, I've always been a bit of an overachiever. I mean, I made $40,000 a year when I was 19. I bought my first house when I was 19. So again, overachiever, trying to prove myself. I wanted to be a millionaire when I was little, and thinking that was sort of the way to go. And he loved what he did, and I hated what I did. So you say like there's this money difference, and there definitely is, but joy difference was also very, very apparent, right? So trying to be able to go, okay, I am the breadwinner. That's where we are now. I knew that I would be able to make up at least part of it, and we'd have to really lower what our expenses was. But for him, he was a juggler, performer, contortionist. Even my children are contortionists now, which is always an interesting story to go down to. But for him and for me at that point, it wasn't that big of a deal. It was just what we got used to. Now that I work with couples a lot, there is some masculine, feminine, interesting dynamics that come into play. And I deal with that now too. But at the time, I literally was kind of clueless. I was like, yeah, we're just making money. This is what we do. And there wasn't a lot that went into it back then.
Jaime, I'm curious about the psychology of, like you said, you were this overachiever. Do you have any sense of why you wanted to be that millionaire when you were a little kid? And like, what were you trying to prove to yourself or to somebody else?
I love these questions. Okay. Because yeah, it was proving mode. It was my parents didn't have a lot of money. We didn't even have money for shoes. I tell the story in my book. Back when I was 8, my mom told me to marry somebody rich because I wanted to have a lot of money. And I was like, Mom, I'm going to do it myself. Right. It was very much this, I don't want to have to rely on anyone else. So therefore I have to take care of myself no matter what. Like my grandmother was widowed 3 times. She had 7 kids. Widowed 3 times. She was a tough, tough cookie. And when I go, hey, I need to take responsibility for myself and my life, that started at a ridiculously young age. I was a saver when I was little, but I went after the money, even when my parents told me not to. That's the funny thing. My dad's like, you should enjoy your work. And I'm like, no, Dad, you don't understand. Like, I don't want to have to worry about living paycheck to paycheck. That sucks more than anything. So when I started going into tech, because tech, you make a lot more money, I started getting into tech and going, oh, this isn't exactly what I want to do either, but I just spent a lot of money on college, right? And I ended up making, like I said, 6 figures and thought that would be the epitome of what I wanted. And in hindsight, which is lovely that I went through it when I was 24, because yay, early painful experiences. Who freaking cares about the money? Like the whole point of the Eventual Millionaire site, and the reason why I interview millionaires, is it's life first and then money. Because I was miserable at 24. I was 30, 40, 50 pounds heavier, actually, I think, because I had an expense account and could do whatever I wanted. What I had set myself up for was a life that I didn't actually like. And it was a test. This is what I say now. It's a test, right? But the overachieverness was to prove something that made a life that I didn't even want for all the people to prove to that didn't in the end care whether I had a life that was enjoyable or not. I mean, don't get me wrong. My mom was like, my daughter's amazing. She makes 6 figures, right? And everybody else is like, look at you. Especially when I went back to my high school reunion, they're like, wow, you're amazing. I had just come, my friends were on David Letterman. Like I had all this, yay, I look so fancy. No, it was silly, superficial stuff that I was trying to get over the fact that I didn't feel good enough to myself. So therefore I needed all this money and psychology to be able to do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it sounds like by the age of 24, you realized that you had created effectively a trap for yourself, right? I mean, so you have all this stuff and you have this extra 30 to 50 pounds and you're like not nearly the health that you want to be in. Your happiness level is not what you were promised by the acquisition of all this stuff. And now you're trying to rectify. And for you, like, what was that? How do you remedy this? How do you get the next chapter back?
A lot of pain. No. So there's a book, I can't even remember who it was by, but it was something like, I could do anything if I just knew what it was. I was like, I spent my entire life, and I called it a quarter life crisis, right? I spent my entire life going for this thing. I got this thing. Now I feel like I'm lacking, like I'm a 50-year-old and I need to buy a sports car or something, right? Like what is going on with my life and how do I choose this next path? And so what I did is I tried to, this is why I paid off the $70,000 in debt, because I literally didn't know what else to do. It was like well, I know this, if I want to quit my job, this is not going to work, but I don't know what the job is that I would go over to. I didn't even know what my strengths are. And we can talk about this later, but one of the things that I found from millionaire interviews, which I think is huge, is they really lean on what they're really good at, the strengths, because you feel joy in that, right? I was good at tech, kind of, as sort of a side note, like came easy to me. So I thought that was the path, but that didn't bring me joy. That wasn't the strength in my mission in this world. And figuring out what that was a pain in the butt for an overachiever, because it's not a linear path. It's grasping at straws. It was talking to a bunch of people going, well, what do you think I should do? And what do you think I should do? So it was just this really annoying period of time. Now, what I tell people now is like, enjoy it as much as you can, because the amount of opportunities that you could have is absolutely amazing, right? You could do anything. That is a fun space to be in, except when you hate being in that space because you don't have an answer. That's not fun. So what I ended up doing was really going down that path. I remember reading Dan Miller's book, 48 Days to the Work You Love. I read books and books and books, and I ended up finding a mentor. So actually, before that, I ended up chatting with one of my friends. I was sort of coaching him on stuff. He was like, you should do this for a living. You love this. And I was like, coaches are dumb. Just so you know, like please never call me that, because I think that is silly, because it was life coaching at the time. And that was, I'm an engineer. I care about data. I don't care about life coaching. That's silly. Right. And so what was funny, though, at that moment, I loved giving advice, and people would ask me for advice constantly about paying off the debt. And I looked like I was 12, by the way. I was 24, but I used to get carded for movies. So the fact
I've been
that
there. Can we just unite in remembering that moment together? Yeah. I'm married. My wife is with me. I have a 2-year-old, and I'm the one getting carded. We're trying to go see Lion King. Come on, let's calm down, everybody.
Me and you, we're the same.
Yep,
and the old me hated that. I was like, are you kidding? I had a 1-year-old the last time I got carded for a movie. I was like, are you kidding me? Right. And I was married. And yeah, now I'm like, wait, do I look young, please? How young?
Right. Yes.
Right.
How quickly it turns.
Whatever we can do, whatever I can do. Yes, card me, please. But turning into a coach and looking young is not an asset. Let's just say that. When I actually did find my mentor, he made me wear suits and red lipstick so people would take me seriously, just as a side note. But I ended up taking a coaching class and starting to not call myself a coach, because I still thought I was cheesy, but learning the techniques and the tactics back when I was 24. And then I ended up doing some project management work on the side, because I was a project manager. So it was like me just doing all this random stuff, trying to figure out what was that right next step.
So Jaime, to this type A overachiever engineer, you're kind of describing this woo-woo concept of life coaching, right? Like, how did you get over that? And how do you advise other people? Because undoubtedly there are many type A overachievers listening to this podcast who might still think, oh, that's ridiculous. It's a waste of money. I would never spend thousands of dollars on that. Like, what would you advise that person?
Well, I've come a long way. So let's say I didn't go right into life coaching because, again, I was too data driven. So I went and found a mentor in business coaching, and I could justify that. Now, that being said, the amount of data that I have from millionaires and how woo-woo the path technically is, the word visioning came up in my first 20, 30 interviews so often that I was like, that's a little out there. Now, again, I've been doing this a long time, so I've come a long way. Visioning is like core to me. But the engineer back in the day self thought it was super crazy woo-woo. Like that, no, you set goals. Visions are great. You can sort of paint a picture of the vision, but thinking about it daily or doing meditation or anything like that was too far out of the skew for me. Now, I mean, I meditate every single day. So it's a long-term chosen path of testing things that work for you. That's what I suggest for my clients now. The more you start testing and figuring out what really works for you, the more you can find out. So on the life coaching side, yeah, now I would totally hire a life coach. Back in the day, it was like, I thought therapy was dumb back in the day, right? But what I've learned from millionaires over and over and over again is what they're really, really good at is knowing themselves and knowing what they need help with, and then asking for that help to make themselves just incrementally better. And the more and more they can get incrementally better, the more joyful they are, the better they are as a human, the better business owner they are, all those things, because we're evolving as humans. And it kind of gets a bad rap. You know, we talk about mindset and everyone's like, it's mindset, whatever. And it's not just mindset. You have to really take action. I am an action person. That being said, if I don't even believe that it will happen, then I'm not even going to take whatever action's necessary. And that definitely is a piece of it that I think a lot of people that are like, hustle, 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 don't really remember or don't even know about. But in my millionaire interviews over and over and over and over again, it's like 490 something interviews now. And it's so interesting to see how many more people are talking about more of what I consider woo-woo than ever before. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, it definitely does. And I guess I'm very interested in this pivot point for you. And I love that you mentioned Dan Miller's book, 48 Days to the Work You Love, as being a source for you as you were contemplating this. And I'm just thinking, and I'd love for you to reflect on this. How was it possible for you to move into this? And at what point did you realize this is a full-time thing that I can do? So for instance, just if I'm placing in time here, you have the 70,000 in consumer debt, you have this job that's toxic, you don't know the path, you can't see the path. But one thing that is obvious is that the 70K in debt is not making it easier. So you focus on paying that down. And then along the way, you hear about this cheesy thing called life coaching. You're like, nope, not doing that. Business coaching. But at this point, you've been an employee and you're going to move towards help no businesses. So just help me figure out and our audience figure out how that was possible. Because I really think, I say this to say, I think there's really something here for our audience that no one's given them permission, right? And they think that is holding them back. They don't have a degree yet. They're in this one field. They loathe it. They know what they want to do, but they can't see the threads. How did you get there?
And let me say this just as a side point, which I think is really important. I charge $1,800 to $2,000 an hour for coaching now. I have no MBA. I have no business degree. I just get results. So just as a side note, permission granted to everybody, but let me tell you the story of how it happened. So I didn't believe that I could do it either at the beginning. So, I mean, I'm right there with you. Hindsight is 20/20. But what I did know is that I really wanted a mentor. So I ended up reaching out randomly to a bunch of the coaches in the area. Most of them made squat. And just as a side note, because I made so much, I was a little like, I need to make a lot of money, right? I was hoping to make a lot of money so that way I wouldn't have to worry about going back to the job. They allowed me to go back if I needed, but I'm a prover, right? I don't need you. I'm going to make this myself. So when I ended up meeting this person who became my mentor, he was not looking for a mentee, and I didn't know if he would be a mentor. He was way cooler than I ever thought I would get for a mentor. He was the local business coach. He had sold $1 million business beforehand. He was actually looking for somebody to take over his business that was 45 and above. Again, I was 24 and carded for movies. So it wasn't exactly that. I ended up meeting with him for probably 2 hours. He was so kind. He actually gave me tons of advice for doing coaching. I was not planning on doing business coaching, but I was just trying to find a coach that made money to verify that I could actually do coaching and make money, right? Because especially back then, it was like, yeah, when you say you make money, you're talking about $1,500 a month, and that's not enough for me. So I was just trying to validate if coaches actually even made money at this point. So he did. He had an office, an assistant. He did a really amazing job. And he was really great about sort of teaching me about the coaching industry and what I needed for those 2 hours. So I sent him a thank you card in the mail. I love calligraphy and cards and stuff like that. So I sent him a thank you card in the mail. He sent me an email literally the next day after he got it and said, hey, I was looking for someone a lot older than you, but I would love to chat about potential like apprentice type of relationship because I do want to train somebody. And I was like, So I ended up meeting with him. I worked for him for 6 months for free, just as a side note to everybody. I definitely did project management work on the side for a handful of friends, even though that wasn't really my love at all, but just for some money so that I could work for him. I did a lot of his tech stuff. He taught me everything he knew. Now, I worked with him for over 2 years working with businesses and being able to actually understand what to do because, again, I did not have a business before. So yes, I'm smart. That's great. But not having the context was very interesting. And so he actually helped me in regards to that because I was like, I don't feel good. Number one, I look like I'm 12. And all these are, no offense, I'm from Maine. So it was all old white dudes that were
They're not offended millions. Right now. They know it's true.
Right? A bunch of like plumbing companies, landscaping, construction, like contractors, they were looking at me like, who the heck is this youngin'? Right? And so I had to work on my confidence a lot. There was just so many things within that I really had to work on. But I learned so much. My mentor was like, the guy that's really amazing, that's the coach in baseball, can't swing the bat the way that the people do. And I was like, okay, that's still not enough, right? So I didn't end up leaving and going on my own until I knew I was getting results after results for my clients. So to me, it's more of a data thing. Like I used to be a programmer and I have a degree in computers. So being able to go, hey, I know that if this, then that, when I do this with these people, it makes that. So I have this whole workflow of how I work with clients, and I refined what that looked like. So I knew I was getting the results so I could charge them. The other thing though, too, which I want to highlight, is because I wasn't so confident back then, I just had 100% guarantee if you were unhappy for any reason, even if we worked together for a year, I would give you all your money back, because I was so like, this has to be of value to you. So that was the other piece where I was like, I'll just throw that in there. Nobody's ever done it, thank goodness. But I want everybody to know that all I care about is the value at the end. Does that make sense too?
Yeah, no, it certainly does. And I actually wanted to go back just real quick to this first meeting with your mentor, right? And then the follow-up with the beautiful calligraphy and such. Lots of people have these leading meetings and it just kind of peters out. Maybe you follow up, maybe you don't. But I'm curious what you would advise people, and maybe if you could put yourself back there, what do you think stuck out about you that this mentor of yours decided to basically change his entire thought process on who would be an apprentice?
I am opinionated. I'll say that. Okay, so I love that you're asking me about these questions because I was chatting with him the other day. He's still a very, very good friend of mine and an amazing mentor still. He can slap me around like no one else can because he's known me since I was young, right?
Since you were 12.
This is how, yeah, right? This is how he tells the story, which I think is hilarious because I had no idea. He's like, so this little Spitfire comes in saying, I'm going to be your competition. I was like, that's not what I said.
I never said that. Those words did
I
not-
want to see if you make money.
I know, exactly. I was like, no, I'm really sweet. So he jokes about that all the time, but I say I'm very opinionated because number one, I am. But in the coaching industry, what I didn't like, because I joined a class, I think it was like a $3,000 class. I was like, well, I'm putting in money. I love training, but at least whether this works out or not on the coaching side, I'll be a better mom for it. I was like, okay, well, at least I'll learn active listening. That's probably good with kids, right? So I was like, okay, at least the $3,000 was invested in something. Well, the thing about the coaching industry, especially back then, but even now, is that they make you get a mentor. And so what I love about that is I love mentors. My book, Chapter 5, talks about getting mentors. And I've gotten I've gotten offers for mentors, and we can talk about that later. So much. It's insane now. But going back to who do I have that can really teach me what I really, really want to know long term? Somebody actually doing that for me was way better than reading a million books. So I knew I wanted a mentor, but this is my opinionated part. I wanted them to do it for free because they believed in me. And in coaching, they make you pay for a mentor, like a mentor coach. And I'm not saying don't ever pay for a mentor. I get paid to mentor people and to coach them. So don't get me wrong. But where I was, I couldn't afford it. And I knew that I would be able to give back 1 million more times than what I was getting, right? In the long run. And so I just wanted someone to believe in me. And I didn't know how that would work. But even my former husband at the time, I told you he was a juggler and stuff like that. He had a mentor and he had an apprentice, or he was an apprentice. Later, he got his own apprentice, which I think is awesome. And it's this sort of community of giving back and having them help you that I absolutely adore. So I was hoping that I would be able to find that in the business coaching space. I didn't even know that it was possible, to tell you the truth, but apparently that's maybe why I came out Spitfire-like, going like, I think I can help, right? And so when we met again, I was very adamant of going, I know I can help you with your tech. I know I can help you with this. I know I can help you with that. Just give me a chance. And he was like, done.
Awesome. I want to talk about that mentor relationship just a little bit further. So the importance of having one, great. But in the context of this space, business development, coaching, finance, accountability, like what is the role of the mentor and what is the role of the mentee?
Ooh, it depends, right? So let me say this, though. There's difference between mentor, coach, there's consultant. There's just so many different nuances to some of this stuff, right? So his apprentice and mentorship was different than what I think most people call mentorship nowadays. Does that make sense? So I know some people are like, we have mentors and it's the books I read because I'm watching them online, right? Especially back in the day. The mentor apprentice that was as tight as it was, I mean, I was there every single day and he was literally mentoring me. That's what my former husband really had for that. Nowadays, what people really talk about on the mentorship stuff is just having somebody that they can talk to. That's probably 3, 4, 5 steps ahead of them that can give them direct advice. Usually you don't talk to them every day or every week or sometimes even every month. Right now I have a board of mentors where I talk to them like every quarter to make sure that we're on the right track. But other than that, the relationship that I had with my mentor is kind of unique comparatively to what we see every day. It's as if you're an employee and your boss is training you, like really training you. So when you ask that question, I love it because I feel like there's so many misconstrued things about finding a mentor. I had to give back to him more. I mean, I think I gave him a ridiculous amount of time and energy and hours. Plus, even when I started coaching on my own, I gave him 60% of what I made for 2 years. Right. So, I mean, don't get me wrong. He taught me everything he knows and he had the office and the assistant, but it was almost like a contract employee relationship is what I ended up doing with him. So that it's a little different than what we usually consider that. So when you say the roles to me, I get offered to people help me all the time, right? Be my mentor, let me help you. But they're literally like, I'll like do a project for you and then you'll give me, 7 hours of your time. It doesn't really work that way. Does that make sense? And did that answer your question a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. One of my thoughts was just when you were going through and you realized that the vast majority of coaches that you were seeing were making nothing in your local area. I mean, it's like, I don't want to do that. And then you found this individual that was an outlier, in your own space anyways. Knowing what you know now about his business model and how he approached what his chosen path, what was the differentiator for him and for you in those early days? And because I think there are coaches listening to this that they just feel like they're banging their head against a wall and they just don't see the threads that 10x their business model. What was it that for you made this a path that you still lights you up to this day?
Lighting you up and making money also, though, are a little bit different. Like people that are coaches probably adore the coaching. They just want to be able to do it a little more. And it's different. So back in the day, it makes me sound so old. Back then, it was only main focused. So I was driving around constantly to actually get to real businesses, quote unquote, real businesses that could pay us enough money to be able to do it. So niching wise or value wise, we were there and we were better than the rest. I know so much more now about online and niching and that sort of stuff that if he didn't even have a piece of it. That's actually the reason why I ended up leaving him. Not that I didn't love him and want to take over his business. He wasn't willing to go online. And I had a degree in computers, loved the internet, and was a coach. I'm like, I can't not go online. So, but he wasn't willing to pay me to learn how to do that. And I tried to do it on my own for a little while, and that didn't work. And the reason why I started Eventual Millionaire is literally because I left him and was just trying to figure out what the heck I needed to do. So that was 2009, 2010-ish, right? And so the answer to that question from that perspective and where I was then is different than if you were asking me this question now and to diversify and to get more coaching clients online now. Totally different world that we live in.
Well, if we had a time machine, I guess we could focus on back then, but since we do not, maybe we should talk about what to do now.
Right? Smart man. So if you right now are not getting enough clients, one of the main things that I do is we go back, we ask for referrals. Like I can go through the whole process of what we would do if you had a service-based business and what I do in regards to some of those things. Because whenever I start working with a client, most of the people that I work with now are already doing about 6 figures. So tell me how much money they're making right now, and I can tell you the right action steps if you had to guess.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So this service contractor that I'm thinking is bringing, I guess, gross revenue, $150,000 a year.
Okay, perfect. So the reason why I asked that question is because less than $150,000 a year, it's all about sales and marketing. And if you don't have something that you can lean into on the sales and marketing side, that's your number one goal. Doesn't matter about team, doesn't matter about operations or systems or anything like that so much. It's like you can make as a service provider, you should be able to make $100,000 to $150,000 depending on the type of thing that you're working in. Okay. So whether that means you're doing courses or you're diversifying the way that you're leveraging your income, your revenue that's coming in, having a few different opportunities, or just being like a one-on-one coach. If you're good, you should be able to do 100, 150 with the sales and marketing side. So if we know we're doing 150 because we have the sales and marketing side, one of the very first things I look at is, do you even have a team? Sometimes we have random contractors. that are like, okay, because they don't want to commit to leveling up and having a team. It also depends on what your goals are, but I usually try and double somebody. So somebody that comes to me and works in like my mastermind group, I have a lot of those guys and females. We look at what they have. We go, okay, 150. Awesome. That's what I'm doing per year. Next year, let's try and hit 300. Because doubling is not too hard, typically, if you already are making 150. Tripling's harder because your systems sort of go a little janky depending on what kind of leverage and what kind of revenue you're coming in for that. I know. Are your eyes glossing over now?
No. Gosh, I'm being quiet because I don't want to derail you. Keep going.
I get into this as I've got
Brad,
all the
did
things.
my eyes look glazed? I got to work on that.
Jamie, the floor is yours. We want to hear this, please.
Well, I joke a lot with my mastermind because sometimes I'm like, okay, do all these things. And they're like, yes. They even say that they need bracelets that say, what would Jamie do? Because I get in their head and they will now know how to predict what I'm going to say. This is, I'm going to have little robotic Jamies everywhere. They know what to do. So we do actually an assessment of the team. So even when I just hop on a sales call with someone and they're making 150, I go, all right, let's talk about your people, both contractors and not, and we grade them. Most of the time we have to fire someone potentially, right? I tell people who to fire because it's in business, there's so many gray areas, right? And when you don't have the experience, you're literally going, I think it might be this, but maybe I'm just inexperienced. And in reality, these are simple solutions typically. Like, no, they're an F player. You need to fire them. Like there's nothing, and don't get me wrong. When I run them through that specific thing, and I can actually give you a link because we have a whole process to do it and it's free online.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you can go ahead and do this whole thing. But I have them rate them A, B, C, or F. Nobody picks F because they know what I'm going to say. They pick C typically, And so we walk them through this whole process of what that looks like. So I get a lay of the land on their team. So if they can scale or not. Then we get a lay of the land on the sales and marketing side. So if you're already making 150, then you know how to make money. At least somehow, right? There's got to be one marketing tactic that's working. There's got to be one sales system that's working for you. So I dive into what that looks like because I'm a marketing geek, also sales geek. We have a whole bunch of processes having to do for this. And so we extract what's really working. And this is not rocket science here, people, but making people do it is very different than, just knowing these things, which is, the meat of how you get results. When you actually pull out what's working for them and you double it, mindlessly makes you a lot more money. Ta-da! Right? It's so simplistic and it's like, oh yeah, of course. Duh. Thanks, Jamie. But when we go, hey, referrals are your number one, what can we do to get double the amount of referrals? They're like, oh, well, I'm not even asking for them right now. Okay, well, number one, and we of course have processes for this that we give them. Okay, number one, we ask for them. Number one, right? We ask for testimonial. We start a process. We have a whole referral process that they now implement. So now if we go, even if we're not getting double, that's great. We're going to get more. We're going to get more than we had before. Awesome. So number two, what's your next highest level way of getting new leads? Okay, great. Maybe it's Facebook or maybe it's your podcast or maybe whatever it is, right? Then we go through those systems and go, oh, are you even asking on your podcast for applications to hop on a call with you? Oh, you're not. There's just a lot of little pieces that you're like, oh, tweak that little thing over here, tweak this over here. And it starts bumping things up a little bit more. Does that make sense? And all that stuff adds up exponentially. So if you're getting a lot more sales or sales calls, I should say, then we go, are you even converting them? Maybe you suck at sales. Maybe you get tons of leads, but you suck at sales. So what we're trying to do is pull out the pieces that will make the biggest difference on the short term. So when I look at somebody that's making 150, I go, awesome. There's low-hanging fruit, which is what I call it, that we can tweak. So stop doing this, fire this person, go tweak this, send this email for referrals. Now we see how that lays out. I start to gather a little bit more data. I learn whether they do what I say. I just learn a lot of things, right? If they're action takers, if they have mindset blocks that come up when I tell them to do something that's sort of like asking for a sale more than they're used to. And I'm able to pull out what really is going on internally for them. Does that make sense? So the one-on-one coachness I'm geeky into, as you can tell, to be able to pull out really what the main issues are so that they can get results no matter what. Okay, I'll get off my soapbox now.
No, Jamie, that's amazing. So it sounds, and it's funny because that's the term I was going to use was low-hanging fruit also. It's funny that you said it, but it's funny to, I guess, refer to doubling as low-hanging fruit. But that's how you're approaching this, right? You focus on your strengths, and that gets them to these quick-ish wins, let's say. But let's say once they get beyond that,
Yep.
and you want to triple, quadruple, continue on, multiple X of what you're starting with, where do you go from there?
See, I wish we just had a coaching client and I could just coach them, tell them all the things. So it depends, kind of. So usually when you start the low-hanging fruit, they'll start to build momentum. And when they start building momentum, they feel good, right? Yay, progress, especially for people that have felt stuck before. They'll be willing to trust me more, right? Oh, wow, that works. Good job. Awesome. So when we start going down that path, usually there are things that crop up that are issues, especially let's say the low-hanging fruit really does work. Typically, then we start to have operations problems. It's like, oh, shoot, I didn't hire that person fast enough now. Or, oh, shoot, this system that was working before didn't work. Or now I'm overwhelmed because we have too many clients, right? So there's recalibration moments in all of this. And so when you start going down that path to double, all the problems of your business start popping up. That's what we end up working on, right? And so it's not as though we're like, oh, go and double. We just did low-hanging fruit. You're fine forever. I wish that was how that would work. That's not usually how it really works. Usually, when you start going down the low-hanging fruit path, you go, okay, great. Let's do that. Let's make sure your team can hold you accountable to doing that, because entrepreneurs and owners are not very good at accountability on themselves. We are visionaries. Typically, we can do things to a certain point, but we're also a little more eccentric than most, where we're like, I don't want to do that. That sucks. I want to do it my way, right? And it's easy to not push out of your comfort zone because there's no one telling you to. That's why coaches are great to me, is that they really do get you to push, especially if you're willing to go all in and willing to push more. Because as a business owner, you're like, yeah, I want to grow. But sometimes you don't even realize that going and doing this many speaking gigs, well, as you can tell, I turn bright red when I speak anyway. I'm used to it by now. Other people might not be, but I have red splotches all over my neck.
I hadn't noticed.
I get... Everyone's like, oh no, I usually say it at the beginning. Oh no, she's breaking out hives. Something's wrong. It happens every single time. So I'm really used to it, but I never wanted to speak because of that, because people would freak out, right? When I finally realized that was a path that I had to go down, that my mentor told me to do, I went to Toastmasters. It sucked. Everybody was like, wear turtlenecks. It's distracting, right? All these little things, even though I know it's good, pushing me out of my comfort zone, it takes a lot of energy. And so what I do is when we go, okay, start going on the path of low-hanging fruit, now all these other things pop up. How do we take these other things and prioritize them? Because we only have so much time to be able to do them, but figure out which ones will give you the most ROI. And then in timeline format, if you can, figure out which ones we're pushing out of your comfort zone as you go. Level you up, level your team up. So sometimes it's a training issue. My entrepreneurs and owners are notoriously for being crappy managers and crappy at hiring, typically. Usually that's what we're dealing with.
That idea of leveling up is particularly interesting to me, especially you said right next to that, you only have so much time in the day. So many entrepreneurs say, I'm already working 100%. How could I possibly work 110%, 120%? Like, how could I possibly do more?
I tell them, don't. That's dumb. No, I don't. So my number one goal on a sales call, which is hilarious, is I go, I want your significant other to love me. Because if they love me, that means I'm doing my job. Because anybody can make you more money by just telling you to work more. That's not my goal. My goal is to have your significant other go, oh, they're less stressed. They are at dinner more. They have more time. So entrepreneurs notoriously also mismanage their time, mostly because we're getting thrown everything at each other. And it's really hard to figure out priorities when it's especially inside your own head. So one of the very first things we do with any client is a time audit. And they hate me for a while. I actually have one of these. I'll show you because I hate time audits also. This thing, it's going to pop up every single time I turn it. But I have to have something physical in order to do time audit.
Wait. I want to know more. So this is a podcast, but we do have a YouTube channel, which you may be watching this on. So I, in the past, have used Toggl, Toggl, and it's okay. Yeah. It's not like sometimes I forget and that blows up my whole audit. And then I'm doing forensics to try to correct it. What is this device that you have in front of me?
This is called a Timular, because I used to use Toggl also, and I still have it. Don't get me wrong. But I forget because, I have ADD. I do have ADD. So this is on my desk and it makes it way easier. So you can say like networking meetings, calls. And of course, it's going crazy right now as I have it up. But I have when I'm on a coaching call, I can put that. So it's just something. I thought it was going to be really cheesy at first. No offense, Timular people. But somebody sent me it as a gift. And I think it's awesome.
I am on that.
Right? It even has a break. It makes sure I have breaks.
What are you doing? I'm going on break.
Because entrepreneurs entrepreneurs don't do that.
Well, talking about that time audit, like when you do that time audit, what do you uncover?
Oh my gosh, I love this. Okay. I get the entire spreadsheet and then we categorize it based on admin work or sales work or whatever the work is that they actually need. So I love this. I don't even have to say anything to the client. So I'll also give you a link to a free time audit that we use with our clients that you guys can have also. So if you're able to push yourself out of your comfort zone enough without someone wagging their finger, go do a time audit, please. It is eye-opening because they go, no wonder why my sales and marketing isn't growing. I'm spending an hour a week on it. And wait, I'm spending 12 hours on admin and email stuff, right? Or thinking about work, but not actually doing it. Or a lot of the times people are like, I'm not working nearly as much as I thought. I clocked 27 hours. I thought I was working at least 40, right? So there's so many different pieces because we feel overwhelmed, and entrepreneurs, we feel like we're working 50, 60, 70 hours a week. But when you actually have data, it's so much easier. So what I do, I take that huge list, I categorize it. I go, oh, do you notice you're doing this much admin time? We can give that to your, what we call an operator, your right-hand person. If you have a service-based business and you're only making 150, you probably only have one really key hire that we can give to. So give that to them. Teach the process of whatever they do, give that to them. Then I go down the entire list. Why are you doing that? That's dumb. So stop doing that.
I don't want to show you my list.
They love me. I know.
Oh, Jamie, this is so,
I joke about
Brad,
it.
don't do it. Rat me out.
This is so pertinent. I have to rat out Jonathan here. It's where you add value, right? And I mean, Jonathan is the like prototypical like doer. I mean, he just loves getting into the weeds with this stuff. I think I actually, when you said, I want your spouse to love me, that is exactly how I brought this up with Jonathan. It's like,
I could see him simmering on this comment. Ross, like, I know it's coming.
It's coming. Oh, it's coming. I mean, I seriously said to him, I'm like, I would so much rather, and this is as business partners, I would so much rather you spend that hour playing with your son and hanging out with your wife than doing this ridiculous task. While it needs to get done, it doesn't need to get done by you, right? And, you know, it's funny because Jonathan used to be very accessible on Facebook message, on text, etc. And I'm like, please shut off your notifications. Don't check, like batch this.
Can you let me at him? Can you just,
I
see you right here. Brad, this is why you brought me on, right? Because
wait. You got to hear the second half of what he's about to say here.
There's a payoff here. And now I'm like, damn it, I taught him too well. I can't get in touch with him. I've got to like drive over to his house or like send up smoke signals or something. So, I mean, to his great credit, he is dramatically better at this.
Real quick, both of you can have a laugh at my expense, and I'm glad that I was able to grow on the show. But I want to talk in particular about effective versus productive.
Huge. Okay. I say efficient versus effective are two different things also, right? Single mom, 2 kids. I am one of the most effective people ever because I only have so much time. So I have to prioritize absolutely everything, right? Both personal tasks and professional tasks as much as possible because we're humans and we have lives. We are whole, right? It's not just business. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, I have to be like this in business, right? Productive when it comes to business. But when you look at it as a whole, that's why I do care about the home life also. We could be a lot more effective in our home life, which makes us have a better sense of self or relaxation, right? If you're not running around trying to do the laundry before you do the thing, right? So there's a lot of things having to do with that. So the difference to me between effective and efficient is taking a process and making it the most timeline, streamlined possible of whatever that process is. But it negates whatever the result is. And I know a lot of people that do this. And so if you have a team too, ask yourself this question about your employees or even you, because sometimes you're over automating something that doesn't actually get you the end result effectiveness that you actually want anyway, right? So when we back it up and I look at somebody's business in general, I can know what their strengths are and their sweet spot. I ask those questions too, don't get me wrong. So I can tell them what their best ROI can be to be most effective in their business, right? And sometimes it's really hard to see. When you're inside the bottle, you can't see the label, right? You've probably heard that before. So it's way harder for you in your business. Even for me, I have to hire people for some of this stuff too, to know what is going to be effective in the long run. But please, please, please do not mistake productivity or efficiency for actually getting results. Because if I go, hey, you know what? Every time I order dog food, I'm just going to do that all day long and be really, really efficient at it. Yay, go team. But now I have 20 bags of dog food. Well, that was totally awesome, right? Wrong task. It does not matter what it is if it's not getting the effectiveness of the result. Now, in regards to that, though, the reason why I was asking you so much beforehand on how much did this person make and what their goal was is I still need to know where they're going in order to know what is effective. Does that make sense? Because you can have totally different. If you're like, hey, I want to lose 20 pounds. Well, being effective at that is very different than trying to make $300,000 a year being effective at that. So we just have to clearly define what that is so we can clearly define what effectiveness actually means.
Awesome. So Jamie, I want to bring this back home and talk about this in the context of financial independence. So if you think about the ways that people reach financial independence, most of us, I would say really all of us do it in one of like 3 different paths. You either save significant amounts and what you might think of as paper assets or investments, you go into real estate, or you start a business. I think that covers everybody, right? So clearly this is a business conversation, and I want to, this individual that we're talking with, when it comes to goal setting and creating a vision for your life, your vision is to have a business that is designed to allow you to engage in the activities that light you up and reduce or eliminate anything that drags you down and build your life around that. And I'm just curious, if that was the mission statement, if that's the goal, this individual comes to you and we've resolved maybe a few of these other things that we just talked about. How do you get them there?
So many things. Okay. So most of the goals in the long run for any of my clients is either exit, or we don't want to exit because we love what we built and the mission that we have. And it's, I want to work as little as humanly possible, right? Typically, because you want freedom of time. Usually it always goes back to freedom of time. I mean, that's sort of the whole point of your show, right? We want to have freedom. And to be able to do that means that you have to build out something that exists without you, whether you want to sell it or not. I'm dealing with a whole bunch of clients that I have right now that want to sell, and that's a fun process on its own. But it doesn't matter as long as you know what the end goal is, only doing the fun stuff or the stuff that you really, really want to. Now, the funny thing is that owners usually think that they're special snowflakes. Like, but nobody can do it like me. Right?
I would never think that.
Sorry,
Jonathan's
guys.
had that thought 10,000 times.
I have that poster.
Right, exactly. So what I have to say, yes, you're amazing, special unicorn. Let me pat you on the head. Okay, great. And there are so many amazing people out there that will build your vision better than you. So there's a guy, his name is Gary Keller. He lives here in Austin. He runs Keller Williams. He's a billionaire. So maybe we should listen to him, right? So him and the person that wrote the one thing with him, Jay Papasan. Jay's a really good friend of mine. And I remember going to him and he said, you are 5 people away from being over $1 million business. 5 people. So the people on your team matter so much. And you know how earlier I said people really suck at both the managing and the hiring of the team? This is why a lot of people have scale issues, right? We're like, oh, shoot, we're not good at this. And we sort of stop around that point. But what you really need to turn your focus to is to get better at those things, or at least have someone on your team that is better. That's why what I call an operator is somebody that can really help you managing your team too, because usually we kind of suck at that. And when you have that, then you can really start to have your team be more autonomous without you. What we have a tendency to do, and this is, I can say I do it too, so don't get me wrong. I plan on letting go. I know letting go is important, but I just had one little thing that I just, let me just put it right. We meddle. We're like, I know, but it's my flavor. It's my special sauce,
I have a tool called special sauce.
To be able to sort of make your mark is really important. But that letting go process, once you have step number 1, a team that you trust, right? If you don't have that yet, that's, what we were talking about before. You need to have a team that you actually trust, that is training and leveling up also. So that's number 1. Number 2, making sure that the processes of the way you think is in your business. So the way that we run some of our programs is we have the owner make decisions. So we have a decision owner part, and then we have an operator implementation systemizing part. So we go, owner, make these decisions. Oh, you like this. We send a lot of gifts because gifts is one of my love languages. So we send a lot of gifts. So whenever we get a client, they get a handwritten card from me, but I send out that my team sends out the rest of the stuff because I'm never going to make it to the to the post office ever. So I still want them to have that special moment and that special experience, but I don't have to be the one doing those things, right? So those small things, those are decisions that I make to make my whole business seem more special, snowflake-ish, because I do care about that. but can be automated completely. So once we have the team that we know we trust, you've made those decisions on what those systems need to be like, because everything in your business is a system. This is coming from a geek that's a programmer, right? Pretty much everything can be systemized as much as humanly possible. Then most of the work that you have to do is usually not really on you, unless it's your special sauce, right? Unless it's your special strength that's really, really good, which is great. We want to keep doing that. But what we want, ideally, is to even have somebody manage you. I used to say that the operator needs to manage up, right? Because no offense, a lot of owners need to be managed. So if you have the team that can actually manage you and go, hey, Jamie, you've got a speaking gig, that means you need to rewrite that keynote. So we've got this person helping you, but you got to come up with the initial draft. I'm like, oh yeah, thanks. Yeah, I totally do have to do that. But I like that. That's stuff that I like to do. So as long as we've got those pieces in place, you can start to effectively remove yourself piece by piece by piece, knowing that you're growing your team, and then you can learn to let go a little bit better. And it's funny because in your hot seat, I have a recommendation for that too, just as a side.
Well, I think
I'm
you've kind of
prepared.
teed us up for it on most shows. That would be the end of the episode on this show. Jamie, we'd love to give you the chance to tackle the hot seat. Are you ready for this?
Oh, yeah.
In a world drowning in debt and rampant consumption, trapped by the chains of lifestyle inflation, these questions highlight the secrets of those who have broken free. Welcome to the Choose FI Hot Seat.
All right, Jamie, question number 1. What is your favorite blog, podcast, or book of all time?
Okay, so I have 2 books. I told you I'm opinionated, right? So the first book is called Untethered Soul. It's all about the way that your brain thinks. And when you get down to it on the millionaire side or business owner side, it's managing yourself that really matters, right? So that's sort of step 1. But this is the book that I was going to recommend that I just mentioned a second ago. The reason why I love Untethered Soul so much is he wrote a second book called The Surrender Experiment. Now, he built like a $17 million company or something huge that was all based on letting go and surrendering more, which most entrepreneurs that I talk to are like, are you kidding me? I don't know about that. And it is an amazing book that shows you the action steps of how he does, like his whole story of how he does it, because a lot of people don't think that it can be done, and it has been done and in an enjoyable way. So please, please, please read those 2 books.
Well done. Yeah. Yes.
That might be a gift for Jonathan under the tree this year.
Just surrender. I got it. You got it. Absolutely. All right. Question number 2, an inflection point in your life that was especially memorable or meaningful.
Oh, well, we brought up the time that I added up the $70,000 in debt. I thought I was smart until I added that. It was painful. I guess memorable pain. Pain is more memorable anyway, right? So that was definitely huge. But also being on Yahoo's homepage was really amazing 6 times, right? So people from high school, like I thought I had made it. It was very a memorable moment also.
For an overachiever, especially, right?
I was like, I made it. I made 0 money and my website went down. But people think I'm awesome. The proving me loved that part. Yes, for sure.
Yeah, isn't that the greatest? My old site, Richmond Savers, back in the day, I got mentioned in the New York Times. And of course, the site crashed and basically didn't exist shortly thereafter.
You know, what's funny is he carried that with him, though. So life lesson. So when we started Choose FI, the first time we got a big feature, it was possibly New York Times. It was one of those. But he warned me that it was coming. And then he warned the server, the people that host for us.
Company.
And that was like his process. By the way, I think in the next couple of days, there's going to be this big thing. So based on what's happened to me in the past, we need to make sure that this doesn't go down. Like, you know, you learn from your mistakes, you carry forward, right?
Well, let me just say my little follow-up story to that is I was dumb and did not be as smart as Brad. So I was like, when's the next time I'm going to be on Yahoo's homepage again? 3 months later, I was in Kiplinger's Personal Finance. I was on Yahoo's homepage again. My website went down again. So I'm stubborn and it takes me a little while. This is all experience here and pain, lots and lots of pain. I teach from experience. Anyway, continue.
The good news is you're a data enthusiast and we now have 2 touch points.
Oh, nice. All right, Jamie, question number 3, your favorite life hack.
I have so many life hacks. It's insane. So not only do I take nootropics and do all the things, but I would say I send out my laundry. I've hated laundry my entire life. My children don't even know how to do laundry. I screw everything up. So I put it on my doorstep every Wednesday. They pick it up. They bring it back. I don't have to do anything. It's
Folded?
the best thing.
Bring it back folded?
Oh my gosh, yes. You think I fold stuff? Oh gosh.
Goals in life, never have to do laundry again.
But it's like $40, $30, $30.
All right.
$30 like a week. That's better than gold to me. Anyway.
All right. Question number 4, the biggest financial mistake you've made.
We already talked about it a lot. But let me say this one. I bought a brand new car when I was paying off debt. 19,000 of that was a brand new car, which was dumb. I literally sold it or traded it back in 2 months later. Wow. I only lost about $1,500 on it. So that's good. You know how they say you drive it off the lot and you're going to be down like $8,000. Well, it was only $1,500. I drove it for 2 months. But that was still dumb. It was really, and then I bought that car in cash later because I was proving.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like,
you're a prover. Absolutely.
Yeah. Who knew?
All right, Jamie, question number 5, the advice you would give your younger self.
Stop proving stuff. No, that probably would be a good one. One thing that I really feel like I lean a little, since I was little, is the perfectionist mode. And I don't think I realized how fixable things are, right? If you mess up, it's really not nearly as big of a deal as what I made it out to be in my head. So while I am an overachiever, I would pre-plan too much. I wouldn't take action. I'd procrastinate. I was so scared to do it wrong. And then when you become a business owner or entrepreneur in general, you're like, oh, you're supposed to fail a lot. And they say that, but it is very different in actuality, right? To actually deal with that stuff. That's one of the reasons why I interview millionaires. I like knowing the crap that they go through. It makes me feel better about how many times they failed, but it's totally different when you're in it. So I have to remind myself that constantly now. And I wish my younger self had that mantra of like, you can fix it later. Nothing is so detrimental that you can't make it better in the long run. And time will pass no matter what. And you'll probably forget about it because our memories aren't very good either. So good job. We're going to forget about it later.
You know, what's so funny about that is like, I was never going to be an entrepreneur, never. Because I knew that entrepreneurs fail. What I didn't realize is that was part of the process. That's a very important part of the process, is to fail forward. I missed that little memo. And it's really powerful, that reframe, because it gives you permission just to execute and try stuff. And then as soon as you're trying stuff, you get a lot more information about what works and what doesn't, and you'll find something. So that was a big reframe for me from my early 20s to now. And it's a big deal.
Just a little side note on that too, because what's so amazing about being in so many businesses for so long is that I see what they try. We call them tests. They're not failures, right? We're all learning. I see what they do. And it's called the speed of implementation. That's what I call it anyway. From millionaires, the faster you can make that speed of implementation. So the faster the test, the faster the results, the faster the tweaking, that means you grow faster. So if you can get all of those things lined up, which again, painful sometimes. So if you can get over and in your own mind, get used to dealing with stuff like that and making sure it goes faster and meditate or calm down after those bumps in the road, then your whole business can move forward faster too.
Now, we do have a bonus question for you. What purchase have you made over the past 12 months that has brought the most value to your life?
Okay, so I'm side hacking this question because
okay.
I think this is going to be more important. See, I'm totally opinionated. I don't even do what you want.
Just prove it out. That's fine. Just prove it out.
On your
fine.
show.
It's going to work out. Okay.
So for my clients, I send them these things because I think they're really, really important. And I use these constantly every single day. So that's why. Okay. So it hasn't been the past 12 months, but I use it every single day. So I use, and they're on Amazon and they're like $12, a waterproof notepad in my shower. So I don't know if you guys have those or not, but I should send you one because you do your most creative thinking when your body is in use, right? Whether you're running or taking a shower or whatever, and your brain actually has time to defrag a little bit and be a lot more creative. So hands down, everybody jokes because I have like them everywhere in my shower, but hands down.
Wait. I'm sorry. Wait. You have multiple pads inside your shower, like because the inspiration could strike at different heights. Is that what you're telling me?
I should take a photo. So
Please?
you can take the pieces, rip them off, and then stick them. So nobody realizes that you do that either, right? So I have my entire month strategies mapped out. I'm a geek, right? So I have all these things. And then my kids leave me little sweet notes too. So there's a random, like, I love you, Mom, you're the best mom ever in there also. But seriously, I not only to-do lists, like jotting stuff, because I literally have ADD. So I have so many thoughts constantly. I have to get a lot of them out, and having that in the shower is huge. But yeah, no, it's people come in because I have a meditation closet also, which is also important. And people come in and see the shower when I show them the meditation area. And they're like, what? It's like Rain Man, like all sticks everywhere.
How many toothpicks?
Right. So there's that. And then there's also the other one that I just wanted to mention is an eye mask. I know a lot of people don't necessarily think eye masks are, but sleep is so important. So for me, we'll send it to clients that don't sleep very well with a whole little sleeping pack, because sleep is the most important thing that I don't think people really highlight enough. And if you haven't tried nootropics yet, we usually send out a nootropics testing pack to people because I have ADD and I don't want to take like Adderall or whatever, it's Beth pretty much, that's my choice, not yours. But what we do is a lot of entrepreneurs have sort of this crazy brain, right? Where we're thinking constantly. I think it's an asset. I think most of the millionaires that I've interviewed actually have some sort of dyslexia or some sort of learning disability. We really have to figure out how to do things in a little bit of a different way. So nootropics are also called smart drugs. And I'll give you a link to that too. Let me make a note because I will forget. On some different ones to test. So there's one like Alpha Brain that you can get by Onnit. And what it does is it's focus and mental clarity. Like it's support to try and make your brain supplement wise think at least more focused, because I know me, but I also know all of my clients are a little like, and then I have this, and things are coming at them 100 times an hour. And it's really hard to be efficient, effective, or productive when you're all over the place, right? No matter which
But
way
you can accomplish frenetic. You still have frenetic.
So to be able to figure out which one works for you, because that's a small tweak that will optimize you a little bit more. Like my nootropics are in here right now. And so I don't drink coffee. I have my nootropics in a thing. That to me will make a huge difference too. And I can't live without it.
Jaime, you mentioned your book a couple times. Can you tell people the name of the book and where they can find it?
Yes, it's called Eventual Millionaire. If you don't have a business, it really talks about how to start a business. And you can find it on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and all the online retailers.
And people listening to this, they either one are business owners that want to just find out more about how to work with you, or two, just want to find out more about your, the content that you provided, the information that you've gathered from these millionaires. The best way to find out more about what you're doing.
If you go to eventualmillionaire.com/choosefi, that's actually where I'm going to put everything that I just mentioned, all for free for you guys. But you can also just check out eventualmillionaire.com. That's all the millionaire interviews for free on the site.
Well, Jaime, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us on the show. On behalf of Brad and myself, I can't believe how generous you were with your time and with the content. I know this is going to be incredible value for our community. So again, just thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
You guys are amazing. Thanks so much for having me on.
All right, my friends, if you got value from today's episode, and if you've been getting value from the episodes up to this point, just take 1 second and press the subscribe button on the platform you're listening to this on. It just lets the providers know you're getting value from the show and you want to be here when we produce additional content. If you want to support us in what we're doing here at ChooseFI, here are 4 easy ways. 1, leave us an iTunes review. To do that, just go to choosefi.com/iTunes. 2, use our page to sign up for travel credit cards. If you want to travel the world with miles and points instead of your hard-earned dollars, then just go to choosefi.com/cards and get started today. 3, if you're working on the milestones of FI, set up a personal capital account to track your progress and use our affiliate link. It's completely free, and just go to choosefi.com/PC. P as in Paul, C as in cat. And 4, and most importantly, find your friends, coworkers, and family members who might be open to this message and tell them about the podcast. Have them start with episode 100. It is a fantastic starting place. All right, my friends, the fire is spreading. We'll see you next time as we continue to go down the road less traveled.
You've been listening to Choose FI Radio Podcast, where we help middle-class America build wealth, one life hack at a time.